A vague disclaimer is no one's friend. This podcast will look at episodes in relation to Buffy and Angel as a whole, and therefore contains spoilers for the entirety of both series. If you haven't seen all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel the series, go and watch them before you listen to this. Remember, you've been warned.
The hardest thing in this world is to live in it.
That's why there's us, champions. We live as though the world were as it should be, to show it what it can be.
The Earth is definitely doomed.
It's Tuesday, so it must be time to return to the Hellmouth. We're going through the Buffyverse episode by episode, and we'll look back at Joss Whedon's iconic show. I'm Emcee, and I'm here with...
Hi, it's Andie.
I'm David.
I'm Jan.
And I'm Logan. So today we are reviewing episode 11 of season 2, Ted. It originally aired December 8th, 1997. This was actually the last episode that aired in 1997. And it was written by Joss Whedon and David Greenwalt and directed by Bruce Seth Green. I was actually really surprised to find out who was behind this episode. Just because, Joss and David are such big writers for Buffy, and Bruce Seth Green is, a big director. And this episode is... It's this episode.
It is not their best work. I have many thoughts.
It's not their best episode, but I dislike it, I think, less than everybody else here, so we'll have some things to say.
I don't particularly dislike it. I just don't think it's particularly good. It's an episode. And I mean, I have issues, of course, because I'm me, but and I have thoughts. I'm going to try to restrict my thoughts about technology because I know we have the excuse of the Hellmouth is going to be the answer to most of my objections.
Yeah.
But and I now have more thoughts about Captain Tennille than I ever thought I was going to.
Favorite. That's one of my favorite lines. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I don't know. I think it's just one of those things where I think they tried. I think I know what they were going for, and it didn't quite work. But I know what they were trying to do, so I guess that's why I just like it less than some other episodes where it's just this is bad.
Just starting from the beginning with the Captain Tennille part, I am almost positive that was actually a discussion they had in the writer's room, and they're just let's throw it into the episode. And unfortunately, it does not work for me as much as Caveman versus Astronauts discuss.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. It's great, but I grew up on Captain and Tennille, so I just wanted to keep singing "Love Will Keep Us Together" for the rest of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, I grew up on it too. I mean, you know, I'm older. I'm slightly older than everybody, but David here. And I don't know, it just irked me that Buffy wouldn't know who they are. She's never heard any of these things in the mall, or I don't know. It's just kind of what do you mean you've never heard of them?
Yeah.
It's a thing. They had a TV show, for God's sake.
But you have to remember that Buffy was born in 1980.
Yeah,
so...
but they were still it was still something you heard in the mall or, the food
Well,
court.
I mean, even if you heard it in the mall or the food court, you wouldn't really...
Yeah. Maybe she would know who it is, yeah.
I mean, I know who they are, barely. Was it Love Will Keep Us Together? Is that what they did?
Muskrat Love.
And Muskrat Love. Those were probably the two biggest hits. For what it's worth, I reject Xander's entire premise because I think that it was a collaboration, and I don't think one person was particularly in control.
Yeah.
However, if you do accept Xander's premise, he is probably right because of all their singles that were not covers, they were all written by Tennille.
Well, Willow actually had a line cut. And it was, I'm just saying that if Tennille were in charge, she would have been in the little captain hat.
Oh, I'm so sorry that line got cut.
Yeah, no, that would have made a big difference, honestly.
That would work. And just as a weird bit of trivia, and I don't know why it just came into my head, Toni Tennille is actually on Pink Floyd The Wall.
Yes. She's on a number of things, actually. She did a number
so she's got, better musical cred than some people, not just, pop music from the 70s.
Well, and Daryl Dragon, the captain, was the keyboardist for the Beach Boys for many years.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say he did a lot of session work, too. So.
And his name's Daryl Dragon, which is so
true. Cool. So I know Emcee had barely ever heard of them, but given that Joyce asked Giles later in another episode if he's got any songs by, Bread?
and she's into Juice Newton, I suspect that Joyce would have taught Buffy about the Captain and Tennille. So she has that true. Like that 70s light rock.
Yeah. She probably grew up with it around the house.
But would she have retained it?
True.
Yeah, it's Buffy, maybe not.
Well, I like the Captain and Tennille, but I grew up on 70s light rock.
Okay.
I liked them at the time because I had a top 40 sense of music until 1976, 1977. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine with them.
So, well, that was quite a bit on the Captain and Tennille.
So, welcome to the Captain and Tennille podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting into actual exposition that happens in this episode.
Oh yes.
They talk about the aftermath of What's My Line.
I kind of got annoyed at Xander when he said, with Spike and Drusilla out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't even check.
Yeah. And actually,
You just left them there.
Giles mentions it later. He says, with Spike and Drusilla gone and hopefully dead. And I'm like, what's this hopefully shit? Why didn't you go check?
Yeah,
don't they ever
and also
learn?
If they're out cold, why didn't you just stake them and get rid of them? I mean, that seems to me logical. I mean, granted, we know for story reasons why they're not, but yeah, it's just huh? What?
I had this problem at the end of What's My Line too. I was like, guys, go look.
And okay, the contract with Track and Assassins is canceled. It's like, well, how did it get canceled if Spike and Drew aren't still alive? Did the Trackens are just well, I guess the people that are paying us are dead, or how did this work?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the whole thing was they came after their target until their target was dead, so I assumed there would be an advance. So I don't know. It felt really clunky, where it's just oh, we have to get rid of this stuff from the last two-parter because, we don't want it getting in the way.
Yeah. Well, basically, we're going to get a lot of this in this episode. This is basically plot contrivance city.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, there's a lot here where it's just the only reason for this is because it has to happen.
Yeah, I have clunky written a lot in my notes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 What I have written in my notes is that even though this is not a great episode, I do not like it much at all. I put something I steal more lines from this episode than every other episode that I think of Buffy.
Really?
All my good joke lines that I tell people are from this freaking episode.
Really?
So I'll give it points for that. Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get to them when we go through the episode. But yeah, there are 3 or 4 things that I still say.
Is it I make my own fun?
Yeah.
Yes. Willa does make her own fun.
She says I have my own fun. I have my own fun, and the other one is speechless with geek or joy.
Oh yes.
I use geek or joy quite a bit.
Huh.
So, those are 2 of my favorite lines, yeah.
But going back to the beginning of this episode, when we have Buffy walking in on Joyce and Ted making out, what the fuck was going on in this scene? It's well, why isn't the door locked? Were you waiting for Buffy to come?
The door was open.
It was
wasn't
open.
Just locked. It was just ajar.
I missed that bit. That makes it even worse. And also this whole something smashes, there's a no, and all of a sudden they're kissing.
Yeah.
There's a cognitive disconnect in this. They're trying to set it up that Joyce is being attacked, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, especially the no, and then they're snogging and whatever. It's if she heard a noise or just kind of squeak or something, it might have worked.
Yeah.
And somebody knocked a wine glass, but the no and the, and also, it just immediately irked me okay, granted, maybe Joyce had the secret romance, but she's been Buffy had no idea that she's been out on dates or been somewhere with this
she
man
does say,
ever.
she does say, oh, this is why is why you've been keeping late nights at the gallery.
Yeah.
So she's obviously been telling Buffy she's been working late. Yeah. But the thing to me is, if you didn't want her to meet him this way, why did you bring him to the house?
Yeah.
Where else were they going to go? Because clearly she has never seen Ted's house.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Right.
Wine glass breaks, no, and then kissing. It seriously bugs me so much. Like, I mean, I can let go the fact that they're at the house. Like, maybe, like, Joyce thought that Buffy was going to be out later, and they wanted to have their first date, but Joyce is obviously bothered by the fact that the wine glass is broken. And instead they're swept up by passion. It's like, that's not how people think. It's like, you're either swept up by passion or you pick up the fucking wine glass.
Perhaps it was their passion that broke the wine glass. They're making out, leaning against it. They bump into it. She's like, oh no. Oh, well, I'm going to go back to kissing my robot boy.
So what I always thought, and it doesn't make any sense with the wine glass and the passion, that they didn't think Buffy... They didn't think Buffy was going to be home as soon as she was, and this was supposed to be a setup for the first meeting. Like the whole, he's going to come over, he's going to make dinner, he's going to meet my daughter. Now,
which makes no sense.
Wine glass passion, band name, I call it Wine Glass Passion.
That sounds like the name of a cheesy 70s rock band.
Right,
but
I love it. Yeah, maybe this was going to be the introduction of Ted to Buffy, but it just plays out so... Like, there's logic. It's insane troll logic.
If that's the case, I mean, this is I'm gonna say it right now. I'm gonna have a lot of trouble with Joyce throughout this entire episode.
Oh,
same.
This is the worst parenting ever.
And honestly, the only possible explanation that makes any sense is the goddamn cookies.
Yeah.
And I don't really buy it.
Yeah,
I don't either.
Because she wasn't eating constantly. It's like, it would wear off, and then wouldn't she be like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But instead, it's just like she's in this constant state of...
Right, because we see how it affects Xander, and there's a clear demarcation.
Yeah.
So, it's like, so this is...
Yeah, I was just... the drug shares some qualities with ecstasy. I've never actually been on ecstasy, but I certainly know people who have.
Ditto.
Yeah, it does not, keep you in this completely mellow state, like, after it goes out of your system.
No, you have a hard crash.
Yes.
You get really sad.
Yeah.
Or Xanax? Xanax a little bit more?
Well, the thing, I really should have looked this up.
Xanax is just an anti-anxiety drug.
A low level of Xanax that just sort of, I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
They play it safe with the ecstasy thing by saying it has some properties in common with ecstasy, so it's not ecstasy.
And you remember ecstasy in the 90s. Like, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Right, well, no, that's why they bring it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But clearly, I didn't look up the drug that they actually talk about. I should have.
Oh, I did, and it's not a real thing.
I was going to say.
It just...
There you go.
Yeah, if you Google it, it just comes back to other Buffy pages. So it doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, there's your answer right there. It's complete garbage.
Then it can do whatever the hell the writers want it to do, but it makes no sense in terms of the way chemicals work in your body in general.
It's unobtainium.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of wondering how Ted was able to get it into the food if he's cooking at Joyce's house. Like when he's making the mini pizzas. Like, it's like, here is my special seasoning.
Sure,
well, he's a robot. Maybe he has, he can just, inject it from a finger or something.
Yeah, he has dispensers.
Got a reservoir. Yeah, it's like R2-D2. He's got a little thing that just, pops out and sticks in the food when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
Okay,
the pizza things, I don't... Maybe he's got, a special can of oregano. I don't know. But...
A lot of times in the 90s, I walked around with a special can of oregano.
Yes.
So
I was just about to say, we did that in the 70s, too, in my junior high school, so yeah. But, oh, man.
Okay, so the logistics of this it's going to trip us all up.
Yeah,
this episode's going to be a mess if we try to make sense of it.
I think maybe, I get, we love our nitty picks, but,
They're not even challenging us this time.
Well, I wanted to bring up maybe another reason why everybody's so inclined to like Ted is the way Spike describes the Buffy bot in season 7. People like it because it's safe and predictable. That's why they like robots.
That's true.
And I was wondering if maybe that was another factor.
And also, I have to say, as much trouble as I have with this episode, I feel like John Ritter did a fucking great job with the
he's
character.
That's what I was just about to say.
I hate him.
Yeah. I think we
It
all
ruined John Ritter for me.
Yeah, John Ritter. And I think one of the reasons that John Ritter is so effective is just by casting him, it's slightly subverting an expectation to begin with.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because he's known, I mean, yeah, he plays this sort of pervy guy in Three's Company, but generally, he plays likable characters. He's known for comedy, even if you look at his resume.
Yeah.
He can do tons more than that. But as, like, a known quantity, he's known for comedy and being a comedy performer.
Mm-hmm.
And a likable guy.
And the nicest guy in Hollywood. Like, you never heard a bad word about that guy. So, and I mean, you suspect Ted from, like, the moment he's around, but I think having John Ritter there gives it a layer of the acting the writing doesn't have.
Yeah.
Right, and I was going to say also, I mean, even like on Three's Company, Jack's slightly pervy, but he's still likable. He's still like the cook, and everybody loves him, and, you know.
I mean, who doesn't
he's still
love
the
John
good
Ritter?
guy, yeah.
Like, everybody loves
exactly.
John Ritter.
He was a phenomenal guy, and so yeah, I definitely was going to say he just does such a good job in this, and I just wish the material were better.
I actually suspect one of the reasons why Ted is actually an interesting character, but the episode kind of fails, is I think the episode might have been written specifically for John Ritter to play the role, because Joss knew him. Their fathers had worked together.
And I think, one of John Ritter's kids was like, oh, you should totally do that. I love that show.
Possibly, yeah. And also, from what I hear, that they actually put in Ted being a good cook as a reference to Three's Company.
Right, okay.
For those of you who didn't watch Three's Company, his character was a chef. So.
Speaking of the cooking and logistics, and to set David off on technology, where does the food that he eat goes? Where does it go? Does he empty it out later?
I assume.
What's happening here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
Like
you want
a compartment in his stomach.
That is my smallest problem with the technology.
But it's the easily addressed one.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never had a problem with robots eating in entertainment, because I always feel like, they'll do it like to either hide or to, seem less robotic. And I mean, it's easy enough for them to, have some sort of compartment where they, get rid of it later. As humans do.
They should at least compost. It's polite.
I mean, I definitely don't have a problem. Actually, I don't have a problem with that part of the technology, just because he is designed to appear human.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there would have to be a way for that to happen, and it's simple enough to think, oh, okay, he has a cavity which he eats into, and then it needs to be emptied later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technologically, that's not an issue.
But speaking of technology, we have the specs for Willow's computer.
Oh, God. When I heard 9 gig drive,
Lord.
Nothing dates this episode like the technology. It's like a 9 gigabyte drive, and when he gives her the update for her computer, he hands her a
of floppies.
pack of floppies.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen one of those in years.
I can legit go to the dollar store and buy a USB drive with 4 times the amount of space as Willow's computer.
I mean, my phone is 16 gigs. Just, my phone.
Yeah.
My smartphone is 16 gigs, and I don't even have a nice smartphone. So, yeah.
But given the time, like, my top of the line, like, all the bells and whistles computer that I had to get for an internet job that I was doing, I was writing content for a website and stuff. In 1999, I think I had a 10 gig hard drive at the time, and that was, like...
a beast.
It was for me. I was like, I'd never had anything that big or that fast before. I think it was like a Pentium chip or a Pentium 2. It was like something really like high end. It was like, oh my God. So yeah, totally dated, but I was like, I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it actually at the time was perfectly accurate.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was. I mean, back in those days, all of my stuff was not stored on floppy disk. I used the big platters that were like, I don't know, they were like maybe like 6 inches big. Like, they were ginormous. And I had a huge pile of them because I've always been a data hog. So I had just I had like 20 of them just like stacked up. And they took up so much fucking space. But
So if we're going scene by scene, and if I may, since I've been absent from the podcast of late, shit on Xander?
Yes,
go right ahead.
It's actually...
so when
I have at least one shut up Xander in my notes, yeah.
Ted shows up at school and is like, hey, I'm here. Want to go to...
Oh, yeah.
But everybody's like, nah, and he's like, I don't care what y'all think. I'm going to subvert your agency, and I'm going to make a decision for all of us.
That, in fact, is where my shut up Xander turns up in my notes.
God, he's the worst.
Yeah, my note says, okay, I know there were drugs involved, but God, Xander, be sensitive to your friend.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it's just Xander being an asshole. I don't think the Ted stuff contributes to it at all.
No, I think the mini pizzas were out of his system by that point.
Yeah.
It was the promise of more that made him just turn into an asshole.
Yeah.
Addictive personalities run in his family.
True that.
Yep.
And slightly before that, when Buffy is complaining about Ted, I think at some point Xander sarcastically says, what kind of monster is he? And something occurred to me. It's like, this is a show typically about monsters and about the supernatural. Do robots qualify as monsters?
Yes.
This one does.
Okay.
Robot monster.
That's...
Like
you want to use that as proof of anything. That's not a good idea.
But... just bringing this up, this does kind of call back to the first season. We haven't actually seen this for a while, but in the first season, we did get a lot of episodes where Buffy's like, something's going on, and everybody was like, oh, Buffy, you're so stupid. And then something was going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I had that. One of my biggest pet peeves in this episode is that moment between Buffy and Joyce, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
No, that Joyce does not come out of this episode well at all.
Oh, no.
She really
This is a throwback to last season.
But you know who does? This is a great Giles and Jenny episode.
Oh, yes.
Yay!
Oh, yes.
I have a question, though.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, she's like, I just need space. But at this point, the writers must have known that she's there to spy on Buffy and Giles, or Angel, actually.
Yes.
So why would she want to stay away when that's how she could be watching?
Well, they make a point that she sort of fucked up her mission. She genuinely got involved and cared for these people, especially Giles.
Yeah.
So I think she genuinely was traumatized and was like, okay, I definitely need to take a step.
Oh, no, I'm definitely not negating her trauma. I would
no, of course not. No. I think that's...
But, I'm sort of like... it's like...
I'm not saying the writers were that self-aware. I think they just wanted the drama, but...
Yeah, it's probably drama. And also, I mean, you could argue that she allowed the trauma to override her mission.
Mm-hmm.
True. Okay. My other question is, should I get her haircut because it's way cute?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks. I'm looking for a new haircut, so I just wanted to get some. Thank you.
I would just like to jump back just one scene, just when the kids are talking, because I really wanted to mention this. The clean clown line. I don't know if any joke has bugged me more on Buffy than the clean clown thing, because I don't understand it. I don't understand why it's supposed to be funny. And I don't know, I guess that's supposed to be the joke.
Yeah, I didn't get it either.
Yeah.
But I do love the I make my own fun thing, but that's entirely out of nostalgia, because there was a Willow and Oz fan site called We Make Our Own Fun. It's still up. And I will I will provide a link to it, because I went and looked at it last night and none of my fan fiction is on there, so it's safe for people to look at.
Okay.
I won't tell you where my one piece of fanfic is housed, because it is there in the Wayback Machine.
Emcee knows where my fanfic is, but I'm not telling.
Mine's on AO3.
Yeah.
That's all the stuff that people are allowed to read, because I only put stuff that I'm proud of there.
I have stuff on Skyhawk too that I have to transfer over to AO3, but I haven't gotten around to it. Lazy.
So, MC, not things that you wrote in 1997 where you would have been, barely a teenager.
Yeah, I would have been 13, 14.
Right, okay.
People are not allowed to read that.
Yes, but I remember We Make Our Own Fun. It was a fun site. I think I visited that one a lot. So.
Yeah.
Yay, shout out to the 90s websites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will bring them up as much as I can, like if they're still around.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, this was like the height of my Buffy obsessionness. Like, well, maybe not the height, but this is where it first started to become a thing. Like, back in these days, I would watch the episode and immediately go into an IRC chat room to talk about the episode, and it was
I
awesome.
wish I could have done that. We would have been friends for like 20 years.
I know, right?
Point. I know, instead of just, a couple of years. Now I'm sad that I did not have a computer. So we make our own fun is one of my favorite lines, and I do say that because I don't know if you've noticed this, a little kind of different. And so I often, when people are like, what was that? I was like, I make my own fun.
Mm-hmm. Giles and Jenny, like that's
this is a great Jenny moment. That line she has, you make me feel bad that I don't feel better. It's so self-aware that this was just a really, really good Jenny moment.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And because she ultimately gets the fridge, it's nice that she gets a cup.
It's a very humanizing Jenny moment, because up until now, we've basically only seen Jenny as kind of this teasing romantic interest for Giles. But here, she's actually gone through something, and the show gives us a moment where we're allowing Jenny to go through that, and not just have Giles, be the one experiencing it. This is actually about Jenny and not about Giles. And I mean, it's actual. She's got PTSD from being possessed by a demon, and she's like, you can't push me. Like, I need time to sort this out for myself. Unfortunately, there's no therapists that specialize in demon possession. There should be.
There really should be.
Not on this show.
Yeah.
I keep telling you, I would have made bank if I, was doing therapy in Sunnydale.
Yeah, if there was a supernatural therapist in Sunnydale, they would be like living the high life.
Oh,
Everybody would be coming to their offices. So that would have been great.
If we could do a time travel crossover with Lucifer, we'd have something. But
actually, you know what? I would charge money or insurance, but I would also do things like trade therapy for magic beans.
Okay. I don't,
be like, sure, I will take your magic beans.
Many years ago,
that a euphemism?
There was some sort of questionnaire meme going around on LiveJournal, because this was back in the days when LiveJournal was still really active, and like everybody had to take a character from the Buffyverse and fill it out for them. And I will have to pull it up to actually find what the context was, but I filled it out as Connor, and he kept on thinking that Angel was trying to get him therapy.
Well, that is a group that needs family therapy.
That is true.
Oh, yeah.
That is very true.
Yeah. Sometimes I think the 5 of us need family therapy.
Yeah, definitely. And in the comics, they've had Connor become a counselor, and I'm like, bitch, you still ain't got your own stuff figured out.
True.
Let's just push that deep down. But speaking of Connor's dad, that scene between Buffy and Angel where he goes, is there a guy that would satisfy you? And she said, my dad. I'm like, why? Hank sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hank, he cheated on her mother. Why would she want him back?
But
yeah.
Because it's her father.
He's her father.
Yeah.
It's her father,
Yeah.
and I will say in that conversation, I was like, oh my god, Buffy and Angel are actually talking about something other than their doomed love or slaying. She's actually opening up, and they're talking through this problem, and like I get the thing where she's like, because he's not my dad, is basically what she's saying. I'm 43 years old. My mother is 72, and she has her first boyfriend after my dad died. And thank God she doesn't listen to this, and he's a great guy. And I want my mom to have agency, but there's a part of me that even at this age, with the knowledge I have, is still like, but that's not my dad.
Yeah.
No, so, like I get it. I actually get it.
Well, see, my issue there is just because, I mean, having had friends who had, like, dads who, like, cheated on their mother, that, like, actually changed the dynamic. I knew people that were, like, furious with their dad. They did not want him in their lives either because he was a scumbag.
I don't think she knows he's cheated at this point.
Okay, I thought that
she doesn't bring that up until later. She doesn't bring that up until she's
it's season 6
until they retcon Hank is a deadbeat dad. I mean, he's not great at this point, but yeah, I don't think she knows he's cheated at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just assumed she did, and that was, I mean, because that like would be an impetus not to be like want her dad back.
Yeah.
And Hank never like struck me as being somebody who was like a really good dad that she had like a great rapport with or anything where she would want him back in their family dynamic. Other than it's a little bit of like, you know, fantasy or wish fulfillment that I want my whole family to be together and blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah. I think this actually is that line kind of like points up what I figured out about why this episode really doesn't work as Buffy is because as we've discussed a million times and everyone's discussed about when they talk about Buffy is this is, you know, taking the horrors of teenage life and making metaphor out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Giles even has the line, I think the subtext has become text.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this episode doesn't work. It literally, like, it's too, like, they didn't bother making it at all subtle. It's just like, no, we're just going to literally put it in front of you. And we've talked, and also with this thing about, you know, oh, my dad. We've discussed before the issues of, you know, children of divorce. And this is, I think, they've taken, like, subplots in an episode and gone with children of divorce issues. This is, I think, the first and maybe only time they've taken an entire episode to make it about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they do it in an incredibly blunt and heavy-handed manner. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we're all looking at this episode and going, I kind of see what they're trying to do, but no, it doesn't really work.
I think part of it would have worked much better. I mean, granted, I'm sure it was, you know, they had too many other stories to tell, but had Ted been like a character who had been there for like 2 or 3 episodes and we kind of like they set him up as like the good guy and somebody who was there and Buffy was like getting ooky about it and then we found out, dun dun dun, yeah, she's right. I think that would have been much, much more effective because then, you know, the audience would have been pulled in too, and even we would have been questioning her a little bit and seeing that she was being gaslit or what have you.
Mm-hmm. But and then they wouldn't have had to tell bad eggs.
Right. Well, that's there you go. That would have been positive too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like this is actually the second time that you've mentioned something like that. I think you brought up in Lie to Me, them introducing what's his name, or Ford. And I actually think that is a much more modern idea of storytelling. Like, and I mean, actually, Buffy helped start this whole thing of the serialized storytelling. Well, I think at this point, Buffy is still kind of straddling, like, the whole, you know, one-shots versus the whole serialized storytelling. Like, later on, you, like, won't be able to watch season 6 without watching the entire fucking thing, because then you'd get completely confused. But here, they're still trying to do little one-shots. Now, I think one thing that really bothers me about this episode is almost the same thing that bothers me about Reptile Boy. There's a lot of this episode relies on domestic abuse metaphor. But it stops being metaphor. It ends up, no, this is just... I don't care if he's a robot, it's just domestic abuse. And it's kind of the same thing with Reptile Boy, where they were relying on this rape metaphor, which stopped being metaphor far and, like, immediately. So... Yeah,
I know a couple of subreddits that Ted could probably frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Well, I mean, I was really disturbed by... I mean, it was a very uncomfortable episode. Disturbed in a way I'm not usually when Buffy gets hit by men. And I know, like, we never want to encourage people hitting people, you know, but it's a superhero show, basically. I'm not bothered when Black Widow gets in a fight with a dude, right? It's 2 people that are good at the fighties doing a thing. It's vampires that happen to be male-bodied getting in a fight. Like, that's fine.
But there's a power dynamic when it comes to Ted and Buffy.
Right, a power dynamic, right? And it's, you know, and the way the fight is choreographed, it's not fun. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's not fun. It's trying to, you know, say something. But Usually the fights on Buffy are a little more fun. They've got that adventure feeling. They've got that superhero feeling. And then this one was just a brutal beating, you know? And so that, yeah, it's super misogynistic.
Just to bring up a fight, which is, I actually think, fairly close to this one, it just works very differently, is in the Angel episode, I believe it's called Sanctuary. It's the second episode with Faith in it, when Buffy comes to town. And Buffy ends up hitting Angel, and then Angel hits her back. And it's people arguing and then hitting each other, which a lot of people would go like, oh my god, like how can they, you know, hit each other, you know? And it is kind of more of an argument setting. But that works because it's like, it's not like this guy who is attacking a young girl in her own room, which he's been sitting in all creepy
for a while, apparently.
Right.
Why did Joyce not go, hey, where's my boyfriend?
I know, right? So we're actually, I think we're getting a little ahead of things, because
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But because
we didn't go over the mini golf.
Yeah, we didn't go over the mini golf.
Yeah,
that's
thoughts.
Which is where things start.
Absolutely.
The mini golf is where we start to see Ted showing his true colors, and Buffy talking to her mom about it later, and her mom just it's like, oh, Buffy, you're being so silly.
And she's being gaslit because, oh, he's too nice, he would never ever. And like that's something that actually bothers me, and especially with her friends and stuff. It's like, if Buffy says, this is sort of like Harry Potter too, if a character who you know is been through things like this before and they say something bad is happening, you don't just discount it and go, oh, ha ha ha, you know, you must be imagining things. You listen to them because you should trust their instincts, or know that they're not just making this up to be, you know, dramatic or fantastical, or just because you've got a chip on your shoulder about your mom's new boyfriend. And that really bothered me, and especially, as I said last night in our IMs, you know, like the current situation with power dynamics in women and abuse and stuff. It's like, you know, if somebody says somebody has said something to me, somebody said somebody's abused me, you don't just discount them. And I think the discussion with Joyce really, really got under my skin, because
it really got me,
you know,
too.
we discussed what's going on too, because it's like, you're granted, oh, she's on drugs, so she, you know, blah blah blah, which is BS here. Don't you at least listen or take it in, or, you know, why do you feel this way, instead of like, oh, well, you're wrong, you know, and totally shutting it down. It reminds me of friends who, like, said that somebody was abusing them or, you know, raping them, and it was just like, you know, totally discounting it totally because, oh, they didn't want to see it, and like that really just got to me. So, which I guess it's supposed to, but
Willow was eating it too, but she wasn't as susceptible. She was more willing to not only believe Buffy to go to bat for her. But my thing about the introduction of Ted into this family dynamic is, I think I have a unique experience when it comes to that, because my partner has 2 kids from a pre-existing relationship, a former relationship, and I don't care, like, considering that this is the first time Ted's ever been to the house, and clearly Joyce is not going to Ted's place. They've just been eating out, right? They've been going out on dates. So this is probably the first introduction of that drug, maybe. He's just been charming her at this point. You don't insert yourself into an existing family dynamic that way. It doesn't work that way. First of all, single parents, especially single mothers, like, statistically, there have been studies, are extremely wary of new people, new men in the lives of their children, especially if they have young female children.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, like, there's that whole line that Ted says about, like, you know, Buffy, you know, the boys must be, like, knocking down her door or whatever, and I'm like, dude, that is so fucking uncomfortable.
It's gross. Yeah. It's gross. So when you come, speaking as someone who's come into an established family as a, you know, quote unquote outsider, you don't take those steps that quickly. You make your own place, and that takes time. And I understand that they didn't have that time season wise. They're gearing up towards Innocence and they're gearing up towards Angelus. But, you know, if you're going to have these filler episodes, at least make them worthwhile, or don't do them at all. But that's beside the point. It's really frustrating that that's the way they decided to go about it. And then it played into this sort of horrific gaslighting an already traumatized girl has to experience. It's gross.
I have to say, like, the one thing I will say about that is, you're right, that, like, that's not, you don't do that. but it seems perfectly in character for Ted.
Oh, hell
like,
yeah.
But, no, but I mean, like, everything about him, like, yeah, the whole salesman dynamic. It's like, yep, you don't stop, you keep going, and that totally fits in with his character.
Yeah, right.
So
the character
like,
itself is great.
As
it's
narrative,
yeah.
As a piece of narrative, it actually kind of works. In fact, I'm much more disturbed by the way everyone else, particularly Joyce, reacts to these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, like, when Joyce said, like, oh no, he didn't threaten to hit you. He told me what happened. I'm just like, Joyce, fuck you!
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, no, you're trusting this guy you've known, like, maybe a month over your daughter, who is not like a 5-year-old who's like I mean, I have issues with people not taking children seriously, but people do. But she's a 16-year-old girl. It's not like she's just like a 5-year-old that an adult might think, oh, they're just making stuff up. This is out of line.
Yeah. And also to tie in with what Logan was saying, I mean, when I was a teenager, my parents were together, but I had like 3 or 4 friends who were all single, like 13, 14-year-old girls, and this was the 70s, and their moms were dating, and their moms were going out and possibly not coming home, but they knew, I mean, their mothers always told them what was going on and dating this guy, and they took a lot of time and a lot of space to even introduce them, and it had to be to a certain point where even if they knew their mom was sleeping with the other guy or going out to like discos or whatever they were doing, they didn't bring the boyfriend home until it was like, okay, I'm bringing Joe home, and we're going to meet him, or we're going to go to dinner, and there was a big setup, so I'm totally agreeing with you, Logan. This is like, older thought, not even, what people might be doing in 2017. So, and Joyce is kind of old-fashioned. Even with the drug, it makes no sense.
I totally agree. I mean, that's the whole thing when, when we were talking earlier and we were positing maybe, Joyce somehow thought, oh, Ted will come over and make dinner, I'll introduce her to Buffy. It's like, you wouldn't do that without talking to Buffy first.
Don't surprise you with a stranger. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
No.
And it's like, and I'm sorry, Joyce is not that digmatized that she would be, she's not that kind of person.
That's that thing. It's like, it's really, I mean, and especially now, because, as we pointed this out when we talked about School Hard, is that Joyce seemed to take a turn in School Hard in her attitude towards Buffy. And it just, like, goes all out the window here. And goes not just, like, her advances just don't go out the window, she goes backwards.
Yeah, I think this is Joyce's worst parenting moment in the series. And I mean, I think we can argue that, later on in the season, she's going to be like, well, you got to stop being the slayer, but that's like a shock to find out your kids, anyway. But this is Joyce's, I mean, it's absolutely unacceptable to not believe your child when they tell you something. And, like, I love Joyce, mainly because I love Christine Sutherland. But the writers use her, like, they put together very consistent voices for Buffy, for the core Scoobies, right? But Joyce vacillates between, hey, she's getting it, she's trying to communicate with her kid, and worst fucking mother in history.
Yeah. And this is like the pinnacle for her getting that award. Yeah. It's just really, really frustrated me. For so many reasons. And Logan, like, really hit the nail on the head, I think, in terms of just, like, single mother dynamics, especially with girl children or adolescent girl children, and boyfriends. It just doesn't work that way. Unless you're a really, like, terrible mother, but Joyce is not normally a terrible mother.
Part of me wonders if this episode might have been originally placed earlier in the season. This feels like an earlier season 2 episode to me. And actually the same thing with Bad Eggs. And I mean, like, there are things, obviously, in this episode that tie into things that have happened, like, the Xander and Cordy relationship and the Jenny and Giles relationship. But other than those little moments, which are fairly...
Those could be rewrites.
Yeah, those can be rewritten. Right. They're fairly separate from the main plot. So I'm almost thinking, like, this episode was written earlier when they kind of fit in more with, like, Your Some Assembly Required and Reptile Boy and those kinds of episodes. And maybe they had to wait for, like, John Ritter or something. Maybe they were like, we gotta work on this episode a little bit.
Yeah, or they were episodes that had been sufficiently developed, and they got to a point where the scripts they had weren't working out, and they had to grab something that had already been was far enough along that they could just use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're highly, highly serialized. And again, Buffy is one of the first shows to really do that serialization. Like, in a writer's room, you're going to have your board with, okay, I think this is going to be the order we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh, you know what? We've had too many monsters of the week. Let's get some mythology in there. So let's push Ted back behind What's My Lines.
Yeah, right? And I think, like, if they did want John Ritter specifically to play the role of Ted, I mean, he was a in-demand actor, so...
That certainly could be an issue, yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean,
I would wait for John Ritter.
Yeah, he even had a series not that long before. Hearts of Fire was like 35 to 30, 95 to 93 to 95.
Okay.
And I think he was doing the Problem Child movies too.
It might have been a little earlier.
He was very much in... Yeah, he was very much in demand. So yeah, and he's like the one, other than like I think the Giles and Jenny moments and the Cordy and Xander moments. I mean, he's like the best thing about this episode, just as himself. I mean, so yeah.
Yeah.
No, his performance is the best thing about this episode.
Well, I have an argument for that, actually.
Okay.
Oh, I think the best thing about this episode is that I did a chock full of robot jokes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right.
I think everyone should have one of you at home. Best line.
Yes,
best
okay.
Line. It's like he's a bread maker.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, you're
but nobody ever uses their bread makers. They get them for Christmas.
I use mine.
Okay, well, send me bread in the mail. Thanks.
In the mail?
No.
I don't
know.
Bread
in the spring.
Thank you. Bring me some bread when I see you next. That'd be great.
Bring you some bread.
One thing I noticed, and I seem to find that when there's episodes that I'm not liking too much, I will focus on little tiny things because it's like, I don't have to look at the main plot. But
welcome to my world.
But when Buffy is talking about investigating Ted and they're walking through the courtyard, you see there's like one tree that has flyers on it, which is not surprising, but there's across from it, there's another tree that has a framed something. Like it's either a framed thing or a plaque. And if you look underneath, there's flowers, and some of them are planted, but then some of them are actually like pots and bouquets. So I'm like, did they set up a fucking memorial? Like, I mean, it totally makes sense because it's Sunnydale High. But yeah, I thought
that's probably one of those production design things that they just slip in there to, give it texture. I mean, the production designers are great at that stuff that like gives it like something to think about in your subconscious, right? Yeah, I mean, because I always thought the production design on Buffy was actually pretty okay. I mean, it's not like Mad Men level production design, but for the 90s, it was pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, I made up a whole backstory of this whole tree because, I mean, if you think about like tragedies that happen at schools, you always have like your little altars and memorials where people like put up pictures and flowers and stuff.
Yeah.
But at Sunnydale, that must happen so much that the janitors are just like tripping over this stuff. So in my mind, like Snyder or whoever, maybe the guidance counselor, like, they do have a guidance counselor. He gets killed in season 3. The guidance counselor is just like, okay, do you know what? We're going to designate this one tree, and we'll make it like the death
grieving tree.
Yes, the grieving tree, and people can leave their memories for all of the students. Yes,
the grieving.
I love it.
Oh,
no,
God.
Get it accepted.
See, and the thing is, that could also be a Shel Silverstein book.
I was about to make that joke.
The grieving tree?
By Shel Silverstein.
So there's another continuity error in here that drove me crazy. Ted threatens to send her to, like, a mental institution.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that retcon later on in Normal again is so, like, really? Because people off it, and we're going to have one in the next episode, Bad Eggs, that I'll point out when we do that episode, is that people are always making these references like, well, if your mom found out, she'd send you to a mental institution. Like, well, her mom already did. But it's just one of those plot things in Buffy that I'm like,
just going back a little bit, we did skip over Xander and Cordy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I do love Xander.
Yeah. And this is the first time we've seen them actually,
In a
quote
closet.
unquote, pursuing a relationship. I guess it's quote unquote pursuing a quote unquote relationship, if we're going to be
They're
honest.
pursuing something.
Yeah.
It's...
Orgasm. Orgasm is what they're pursuing.
We'll talk more about that when we actually get on to bad eggs, because I have so many problems with the things. But I do love the line, do you want to go to the utility closet to make out? And then Cordy going, is that all you think about? Okay. I mean,
hey, at least Xander asked for consent.
That is true.
Right.
And I mean, like,
Go,
I do think
Xander.
every episode we're like, oh my god, Cordy's amazing. But, like, Cordy and Xander, it's like, even when Xander annoys me when it comes to Cordy, I still love their scenes together.
I do too.
Yeah.
Me too. I think they have great chemistry, and they both are like so.
Yeah.
I don't know. They just like bring out the best each other as actors. I mean, you know, they just they gel great. So
yeah, they're great.
And I love her reaction to nice outfit.
It's like she's like so confused because he's not insulting her.
Yeah, I'm like, I honestly don't know how you make that into an insult. But, you know.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think the other thing in this episode is there are a lot of implications of the killing of a human being that get swept aside so fast. And I know next season we're going to get a lot of that.
We're going to get into that.
With Faith. But I think in terms of structure and writing and all the things about this episode, if I were to go in and sit in the writer's room, I'd be like, this thesis of the episode, this theme of the episode is maybe more important than this ham-handed mom gets a new boyfriend stuff. Like, because that's the fascinating part, is Buffy's guilt at killing a human.
But they explore it with Faith, and they explore it again in season 6.
Yeah.
6?
No,
when Buffy hallucinates that when she's fighting those demons. To cover up the fact that Warren killed his girlfriend.
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
I just think it's a fascinating topic and part of their moral universe that they've talked about. Buffy said, I just don't go after human beings. And she sort of made that moral code. The other thing, I will give Xander props here. He is really, he's doing a really great job with Buffy. He says he knows her, and he knows she wouldn't hurt someone on purpose. He's very, very kind, and I really enjoy Xander in that scene because he really is being supportive.
Even though he's clearly taken aback when he realizes that they think Ted is actually a human.
Oh yeah, he's taken aback, but he's still.
But he still tries. He's
still supportive.
Does try to be supportive.
Like, I know you, Buffy. I said something like, "Wow, Xander's a really good fan of being there for Buffy when he's treating her like a friend and not an object." You know, so it's nice.
Really good point.
Right.
One thing I was I found disturbing when Buffy is being interviewed by the police when she's talking about the fight. Buffy's talking about, oh, Ted hit me. And he's like, well, where did he hit you? And she points out where. And the police officer immediately says, it must not have been very hard. He's not disbelieving.
As if that's an excuse.
Yeah, he's not disbelieving that Buffy was hit. He's just like, it must not have been hard. And it's like, well, he shouldn't be hitting her any strength.
I'm sorry, at what point are women allowed to fight back? Is it if we get knocked bloody, or like at what point? But I mean, let's be real. We're still dealing with victim blaming when it comes
that
to
is
police.
true.
That's what I was saying. Yeah,
and this is
1997.
So yeah,
it doesn't even matter if he slapped her lightly, and it doesn't matter. He hit her the end. Especially when he's not even a parent, so you can't use it as, well, she was my kid and I was disciplining her, or blah blah blah. He's not anybody to her, and he should his hands off. End of story.
I can't really tell if they were just doing that as story or as trying to point up victim blaming.
I think it was story.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see someone making an argument that they were trying to point up that issue.
I don't give Joss that much credit, especially in 1997.
Yeah, I know. It's like I say, I don't really buy it, but I could see someone making the argument.
But like we did talk, Andie, you talked a little bit about how we're going to get into this whole, the morality issues of a Slayer killing a human in season, 3. Granted, I don't think this is the first time Buffy has killed a human, but it's, this is like the first time she's really kind of internalized it or realized that she's done it. I do think it's interesting in both this and in, is it Bad Girls that she does it? Where she kills Finch? Anyways, whatever. But both Buffy and Faith, when they have their big I killed a human moments, it's accidental. Ted fell down the stairs and the deputy mayor just kind of got in the way. Now, not to say that isn't something that they need to have counseling for, because they killed somebody, but the way it ends up being handled, like when Xander and Cordelia are talking about so should a Slayer get a license to kill, and it's like, this kind of stuff does happen where people will, that's why there's like manslaughter or, just because like Buffy and Ted were in a fight and Ted ended up going down the stairs because she didn't push him down the stairs.
No.
Right.
He ricocheted off the wall and then fell down the stairs. And also he totally did it intentionally.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, that is the scene where they talk about the Slayer getting a license to kill, and they're like, but Cordy, we don't live in a fascist society. And she's like,
yeah, why can't we have one of those?
Why can't we have one of those? But she also offers to help there.
Yes.
And she offers to patrol with Giles. Giles is like, no, I'll go out and patrol. And then she's like, do you need any help? And he's like, no, I'm okay. Cordy offers to patrol.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I love it.
And at the end of the episode, she is hanging out with the Scoobies in public.
Huh. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and when they find Ted's place, she's like, okay, I'll go check the back. Deuces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, Cordy.
Yeah. No argument. No. I know. I really wish they.
My girl.
And her sense of style tells them where the secret room is.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Right. Of course.
Because she sees the rug and she says this doesn't fit.
Right.
Okay. So the scene that truly made me loathe Joyce in this episode.
It gets worse? Okay.
Yeah. After everything has happened with Ted, like right before Ted shows up again, and Buffy has been going through all of this, and Joyce just immediately shuts Buffy down. Like, I mean, I get that Joyce is grieving, and she's probably coming down from a drug high at this point. But she immediately puts her own feelings ahead of what Buffy is going through. And, like, Joyce, like, she actually did have Joyce kind of tried to cover up for Buffy in terms of...
Yes.
Like, the police. She's like, he fell down the stairs. And Buffy's the one who actually, like, pointed out, I pushed him. And so... I mean, I get that there's conflicting feelings going on, but Buffy came up to Joyce and is like, I need to talk to you about what happened. Like, you need to understand this. And Joyce is just like, I don't want to look at you right now, basically. And, like, I could not... I know tragedy does a lot of things to people, but the fact that Joyce was putting her own feelings ahead of her child's... I
think that's addressed in the next episode too. When she talks to Giles, she's like, I don't want to call it a burden, but it is a burden, having a kid sometimes. And on one hand, like, I get it, you want to have your own life, and that's really difficult to do when your life and like your focus determines the well-being of another human being. So like on one hand, I'm like, okay, I get that you're very upset. You just watched somebody you love, whether or not it was drug-induced, die in front of you. And possibly someone else you love is responsible. Maybe you need a second. But also, your 16-year-old daughter is traumatized, so maybe pack it down for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I mean, to me, like, parental instinct, especially somebody with Joyce. I mean, Buffy's not somebody who Joyce thinks is a sociopath who's been, thinks she's an axe murderer or or, going out and like doing all these things, her parental instinct, her protective instinct should have kicked in at that point. And it would have been like, this is my baby. Oh my God, something did happen and I've got to protect her over this guy because this is not like her.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh yeah, well, go ahead. My feelings are more important because you're obviously this horrible, terrible child who like has done all these awful things. And this is not how it works. This is not how any of this works. And I'm not even a parent, but
we've already had School Heart at this point where we have had this Joyce like, I know that you're able to take care of yourself. And that's kind of like how she kind of made peace with what she feels about Buffy. I mean, she knows that Buffy is a good kid, but she can take care of herself. And there is, the whole get the hell away from my daughter. But the idea of getting some robot dick, all of a sudden it just goes out the window and she's disbelieving Buffy.
Joyce, they sell robot dick.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah, I've got one.
They don't drug you. Yeah.
Well, admittedly, she doesn't know it's robot dick.
Yeah.
Right.
True. And while we're on pervy trends, I love that at some point, I love that Ted was on that daddy trend.
Oh God!
Oh God! Oh my God! When he says that, I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Well, I sort of thought I took it as a throwback. Actually, like my heart belongs to Daddy, so it's actually old school.
It is.
Yeah.
That then is sort of come in, but okay, your kink is not my kink, and that's okay. But no. No.
Did Joyce nail Buffy's window shut, or did Ted? Because
I think it was Ted.
Yeah, because by the next episode,
this is one of my nitpicks. Actually,
by the next episode, it's open. So
yeah, Buffy does not even check to see if the lock is locked. She just says, "Oh, it's nailed shut." I mean, my first thing, like, if I can't open a window, my first thing is I look to see if someone flipped the lock, and there is a lock on that window.
I don't know. I just assumed it's
so that was a bad piece of direction or something.
I also feel that if it was nailed shut, I mean, Buffy's the fucking Slayer.
Yeah, she should be able to open.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
She'd have to rip it open and nails hanging out, but that actually would have been funny.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But no, I have to say, as far as the Joyce thing is concerned, I have now come to the conclusion that basically they should have put a goatee on Christine Sutherland. Because this is clearly mirror Joyce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's the drugs, man. It was a hell of a cookie.
Yeah. Drugs are a hell of a thing.
If we'd found out he had hypnotized her, there was something like funky that went on early on to actually make her act this aberrant, maybe I could accept it. But yeah, just like, oh, it's some ecstasy. No, she actually would be more caring about Buffy and, because she'd be more open to, because that was the whole point of ecstasy that was invented as a therapeutic drug.
So
exactly. It's like ecstasy, air quotes.
And
right. True.
One thing about this episode is that everything is jammed into the end of it. Like, we spend the entire, 35 minutes of the episode, building up this whole, oh, Ted and Buffy don't get along, oh, Buffy's killed Ted, and then at the very end, it's like, no, Ted's a robot, no, Ted's got ex-wives, Ted was a genius.
Ted is really Bluebeard, yeah.
And, all of this stuff is just jammed in at the very end, and it's actually...
the pacing is weird.
Yeah, the pacing's very weird.
Yes, the pacing is really weird.
I do like the moment where Xander finds the body.
That was a great.
I felt that was very almost felt like Psycho or something, where it's like they don't show it, and yeah, I thought that was a good moment. But the rest of it, because you don't even find out Ted's motivation until after Ted's dead.
It feels like two separate episodes, or at least two separate intentions, and maybe that was because because it was the writers. Considering who they were, it's the first 35 minutes are these this weird psychological drama, and then suddenly it's action.
Yeah.
For the last 15, the pacing was very, very odd.
Yeah, and the plotting in general is just really off. I mean, granted, as we said, they didn't have time. It's a filler episode, but it would have worked so much better if they'd been able to kind of do the setup and do it over a couple of episodes, and seeing more background or something about him. Because all of a sudden, oh, he lives in this weird place in the basement, and it's all 1950s, and everything still works, and oh, he keeps the dead wives in the closet, and I'm like, what? Huh?
I know he doesn't sleep, but I half expected him to have a spinning round bed.
Well, that's more 60s and 50s, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ted's old enough.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
The actual
Keep
Ted.
it up.
Yeah.
Well, Ted's dead.
Yeah. I mean, I have to ask though, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I should have saved this for the end. But what happened to the original Ted?
It sounded like he died, and the robot just kept going on.
I mean, we assume that, but the way they describe what happens at the end, that is not clear at all.
Right, and they never found a body or like a grave or like an obituary.
Yeah, right. And
nothing.
And
You're
the
right.
way they describe it is, they say, Ted. They say, right? Ted's wife left him, so he built the robot who went and got her back, and then she died, and he's been getting new wives ever since.
The line is, "I'm Ted. My wife leaves me." I think they actually mentioned something about Ted getting sick, and then he builds the better Ted.
I'm sickly loser Ted.
Yeah.
Loser sick Ted or something.
Yeah. So basically, like, Ted's wife left him while he was sick, and so then he built the robot, and possibly when putting his consciousness into the robot, it killed off original Ted. I don't know. They don't explain that.
Yeah, they don't.
And if he was that sick, how was he able to build a robot?
Hellmouth.
Well, I got a lot of questions about that.
Drugs.
Yeah, it's all about the drugs. That's it. It's a drug that doesn't exist. It can do anything.
He's like this amazing inventor, but what else did he ever invent? Like, what did he do and where did he do it? You don't even see a workroom there. It's not like, where did he build the robot? I mean, yeah, there's so many, like, loose ends here.
It just occurs to me, we never find out what Ted did for a living.
He was a computer salesman. He sold
Not the original Ted.
Oh, that's true.
No, the original.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But he was like
NASA.
And where did he build Ted? The robot. It's like he's got this like swinging like bachelor pad with dead wives in the closet, but you don't see a workroom. Why is he renting this store or this space? I mean, it's just like there's so many.
Well,
things
there's
that are off
nothing
about
to
it.
say that this was the original Ted's place.
That's true. Yeah, but we don't know. It's just like.
Well, what I have a problem with is at the end they accept that Ted was a psychopath who was going to hurt Joyce. But Joyce doesn't fucking know that Ted was a robot. And she's like, what, they found at his apartment? And it's like, yeah, they found bodies that go back to the 50s. So aren't we going to question why he has bodies that go back to the 50s when he was, like, supposedly a kid? And Cordelia was able to find marriage certificates for Ted Buchanan, but they're, you know, are they accepting that this was the same Ted Buchanan, but the dates don't work out? And where do they think Ted went? Okay, they mention an intern that was there when Ted woke up, so Buffy's no longer, like, thought of as being a murderer.
Right.
But, like, where do they think Ted went after that? Do they think he ran away? Did they think he's dead now? Like, what?
Is there a manhunt?
Yes.
Right.
Basically, we need protective eye gear because there are so many loose ends flying around.
And also, now that I'm thinking about it, they found all these wedding certificates, marriage certificates, but they never found a death certificate. So what did happen to the original Ted?
Well, right? I suspect that if Ted, like, transferred himself into a robot body, he probably did not report his death.
Right, but we don't know if he did that or not.
I would doubt it, because he would probably want to fit into Ted's life at the time.
See, that's interesting. Before you mentioned it, I hadn't even considered the possibility that he transferred his consciousness. I assumed it was all programming.
It's the only thing that makes sense to me. And, like, I have no problem.
None of this makes sense.
Well, none of it makes sense, but the thing is, he kind of... I am willing to accept some things, and, you know, the whole idea of, it's the Hellmouth. There's a certain, like... You have to be able to accept that vampires are real. And so if you can accept that vampires are real, you can accept that robots are going to work exactly like humans. Because Hellmouth.
Right, and we have to accept it because of
and the other
Warren.
one is science, right?
But Hellmouth. I mean, we just have to take that as...
Yeah, the answer is just Hellmouth.
The answer is Hellmouth.
Yeah, but that does not explain everything.
Buffybot works.
Yeah.
And and I assume the answer about what happened to the original Ted's body, I would just assume he's in the closet with the wives.
Yeah, he could be.
Same.
That's an idea.
I mean, it's not like Xander spent time counting the bodies to make sure there were only 4.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess this just isn't the stuff I think about some of it, and I think about...
And maybe that's why they think... Maybe that's why there isn't a manhunt. Maybe they found Ted's body.
But he would have been dead since the 50s, so...
Maybe he was embalmed. somehow.
Okay.
Hellmouth.
Hellmouth.
I'm just going to say Hellmouth. Anytime anyone calls me on anything, I'm just going to say Hellmouth now.
Good.
And I am too, because I don't know. I just don't really give a shit about like how and the what and the. That's not that I don't give a shit. I like to pick things apart, but never. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of whatever to me.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens is we pick the nits, and I'm totally for picking the nits when it's not a great episode, and we stop talking about the theme of the episode, right?
Right.
Thematically.
Well, that's because the theme, in this case, I think the theme is just so clunky, and we know what they're trying to say, but it's said so badly, and it makes no sense. That's why we start focusing on other stuff too, because it's like, this is why the narrative just doesn't work, and therefore the theme kind of goes out the window because you're so busy going like, what the fuck is this?
Can we talk about Giles and Jenny's little theme?
Yes.
You mean when Giles got shot?
Why the fuck is Jenny so
nothing
stupid?
That says I forgive you, like shooting someone.
Yeah.
Like,
but seriously, why is Jenny so stupid that she's going to sneak up on Giles in the middle of the night while he's in a park? It's like, you've been in Sunnydale for a while, bitch.
And she knows what's going on.
Maybe she just happened upon him, honestly.
She low-jacked him. If Giles was my boyfriend, I would low-jack him. I'd want to know where he is all the time. I know that was very creepy.
It's gypsy magic low-jacking.
There you go.
I don't know.
Techno-pagan gypsy.
We're coming up on the Surprise and Innocence tune. We're really gonna have to work out the terminology we want to use when it comes to Jen.
Yeah, let's stick with techno-pagan and
she can be both.
Well, that word is quite often considered a slur.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. It should be wrong. Romany, techno-pagan, magic.
I don't know if she is though.
But then it also gets really.
Suggestion?
It also gets really weird because they do play up the whole. It's not Romani because it's all magic and like shit like this. It's like your Halloween store, gypsy costume. So it's so. This is why
it's hard to talk about 20 years with 20 years hindsight because it's so frequently gross.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
this was, but still love the scene with them. Love it.
Yes. Despite everything.
I'm glad they explained why he wasn't dead or losing a kidney or paralyzed because he's super British. Apparently.
Yes, because Tweed is better than Kevlar. Yes.
Tweed has a superpower.
That's a better explanation than Hellmouth.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Because of
true.
Tweed.
I do want to know why Giles' cross doesn't work on the vampire.
Jewish?
Maybe he was Jewish.
That was the only thing I could think of.
Muslim,
vampire?
The old joke with the punchline is about Gunnish helfen, which in Yiddish means nothing's going to help. It's all about it's exactly that setup where somebody goes, the vampire's coming, and they pull out the cross, and it doesn't work, and then the vampire goes, "Sevelt Gunnish helfen." So, but you have to understand Yiddish to get it. So, anyway,
I've always found it interesting that that concept has not been used more in vampire stories. That the cross is a specific religion's thing, and it would not necessarily affect Jewish vampires.
I hesitate to bring this up because they really do tank, but the Anita Blake novels by Laurel K. Hamilton, they actually address that. It doesn't matter what the symbol is as long as there's belief behind it.
Yes, no, sometimes they do that. But
so if you're an atheist, you're fucked.
Even that is not as common as I would expect, because I don't know what year it was, but this actually comes up in a Marvel comic.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
In Greenberg the Vampire.
Yeah.
In Greenberg the Vampire, Greenberg is not affected.
I was actually thinking about X-Men. Some of the 70s X-Men comics that comes up. Logan tries to use the cross, and it doesn't work because he doesn't believe in it. But Kitty and Kurt are able to repel.
Kurt believes.
Oh God, does Kurt
believe?
Deeply, yeah.
Boy, does Kurt
believe.
Well,
I think the Cassandra Clare books bring that up as well with Simon.
I'm not talking about
Judaism.
I'm not talking about Cassandra Clare at all.
That's okay.
Oh hell no.
So, it's vaguely addressed.
And it being from the other side, I mean, I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about this either, but the Fearless Vampire Killers, I believe it comes up that if a vampire is Jewish, that a cross won't work on them.
Was that in Fearless Vampire?
I think it is.
Yeah, and for some reason I think maybe in the Charlotte thingy, the Suki Southern Vampire.
Charlene Harris,
yeah. I think the belief thing may come up there at some point too. It's been a while since I've read those books, but that sound along like the Hamilton. It's the same general thing. Like it really is the wielder's belief in something, and their own ability to turn
right.
Undead.
Andie,
but like, okay, so for Joss being such a militant atheist, his mythology is completely predicated on a Christian theology.
Oh yeah,
portrayed by
like
a Jewish actress,
thing. Right? So I just find that interesting that crosses work and all that stuff, and really
water.
the whole mythology and the god and not the powers that be, not necessarily, but yeah, he's really based
and
on
holy water works.
Christian
Yeah, it's
mythology.
very much.
I mean, I suspect that the reason for that is simply that crosses in holy water are so traditional for vampire stories that they simply didn't think about it. They didn't give it any thought.
And also, he's trying to subvert a specific genre of horror and vampire lore. So you take So,
but David brought up an interesting point that in this case, some reason the vampire was just like, yeah, whatever, and kept on coming. So
yeah. While they're like wrestling on the ground, Giles has a cross in his hand.
Yeah, he's Unitarian. So like, maybe I believe in this today, and maybe I'll not today, tomorrow maybe, but I don't know.
You have not lived till you've been to a Unitarian Rosh Hashanah service and seen a Unitarian minister try to play a shofar. That is.
Love it. Oh, that's why no. That's why we bring the. That's why we. I'm a Unitarian. We team up with the temple, and so all the shofar playing and the cantering is done by the actual cantor, and we just sort of we combine it. For certain things, and it works, and we have a good relationship there. But yes, I would suspect a non-Jewish shofar player would be kind of done. Okay. So anyway, digression.
So we end the episode, and I do have to mention Willow studying the Ted parts is the best bit of unintentional foreshadowing that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I made a note on that too.
Because
just like,
I mean, I will now accept that Willow can work on the Buffy bot 5 years from now or whatever.
Yeah.
Because she's been studying Ted parts the entire time. And the very end, Giles and Jenny making out.
Yay!
I mean, I'm so glad they're doing it, but also they're out of school. They're just making out of school. It's like,
come on,
no one ever comes into the library.
That's true.
Right.
Well, we brought up the fact that Buffy is aerobicizing in the middle of the library in a skimpy outfit, and no one's ever gone, Giles, I don't think this is appropriate, so... And nobody goes into the library except for the Scoobies, so... And that one time, Jonathan.
So, just to wrap things up, couple of facts for this episode. Both Allison Hannigan and Joss said that this was amongst their favorite episodes of the series, which I entirely chalk up to the fact that they really liked working with John Ritter.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that's it. Yeah.
And this episode was filmed during Halloween, and some of the cast and crew came dressed up. Sarah Michelle Gellar dressed as Dorothy, and Christine Sutherland came dressed as Ted's first wife.
As if we didn't love Christine Sutherland already.
I know, right? And really apparently both Sarah and John Ritter were sick during the last fight scene. Sarah had the flu, and John Ritter had food poisoning. Which...
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to think about how nasty that was.
Yeah. But yeah, so final thoughts on Ted, I guess.
Yep.
Does anybody have any?
I looked up a music fact.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because I did notice there was a piece. There was an important. Well, not important, but noticeable piece of music in this episode.
Yes.
The record that's playing in Ted's basement.
Yes.
Oh, right.
And that is a piece of stock music from Los Angeles Sound. It is untitled.
Okay.
50s
All right, good
music.
to know.
Yeah. It's like random 50s.
We didn't
jazz.
have the budget to pay for something,
Yep,
the license,
just use-
so we pulled something from the music stock library.
Well,
Yeah.
it's from a stock house. It's not
Right.
like in-house music, so they
Okay.
probably did pay for
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
But yeah, so
But not like something
that's
like
my-
majorly licensed, yeah.
right. Yeah, but that's my fun fact. about
Okay.
this. Yay.
Okay, I love it. That's a good fun fact.
Yes.
My final thoughts is, I used to kind of like dig this episode, and watching it again, I'm like, no, I really don't like this thing. But there is a repeating pattern that you're going to see. Anytime Buffy is sad, she wears her sad overall.
Yes.
I was gonna
She
come
does
up
have
with
her
that
sad
overall.
The
overalls.
dungarees
Yeah,
of
so
sorrow.
Buffy's sad overalls, but yeah, I John Ritter's fan-freaking-tastic. I love him. But I don't like this episode. I just don't like it anymore.
Nope.
Yeah,
That's my final thought.
I could do without this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's funny because I think I liked it more before I watched it again. And,
me too.
20 years after, suddenly, like, gives you a whole different viewpoint on things, especially the gaslighting, and it's just like, why the hell doesn't anybody believe her?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but John Ritter was phenomenal, and that's like the one saving grace, other than other than the romantic stuff between Giles and Jenny and Cordy and Xander.
Yeah, there's good stuff in it, but the good stuff that is in it does not counterbalance just the sheer uncomfortableness of the rest of the episode.
For sure.
And bad writing.
And bad
all the way
writing,
through.
Yeah.
So, Logan, do you have any final thoughts? Was that basically it?
This episode is one and the next one. If I'm doing a watch through, I just skip them.
Yeah.
But I can engage in it more now, having had a weird life change.
Mm-hmm.
Considering, being constantly around children.
Mm-hmm.
But I still really, really don't like it. I think Joyce got shortchanged in her characterization.
Mm-hmm.
John Ritter did a great job, but he gives me the creeps. And I really don't like abuse storylines.
Yeah.
They bum me out.
Yeah.
So, I will continue to skip it.
Yeah.
I would say that Joyce is probably the worst part of this episode.
Yeah, and it's very depressing because she does really well with the material, but the material is awful.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, Christine Sutherland is fine. It's Joyce that's the
what
problem.
yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. She's like, she does a really good, Kristen Sutherland's really good, but...
I don't think she's ever bad, but Joyce is just such a hit or miss character. Like, she doesn't really... Until season 5, until season 5, when or we know now that they were setting her up to die, she was very inconsistent. Yeah.
I mean, I think she'll get better and more consistent.
Yeah.
In the coming couple of seasons, when they give her more to do. I mean, that's the thing is, until now she's been sort of functional. More than anything else. She's there to be Buffy's mom.
Yeah.
She's not so much of a character in her own right.
That's true.
Right, yeah, she's just like a symbolic thing.
I think when she develops I think after they clear up the whole she can't know that Buffy's the Slayer.
Oh, yeah. That makes a big difference.
And she starts developing... And, I do love her relationship with Spike.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, she will get more to do and she will become a better character.
Yeah.
But at this point, they're still just, throwing darts at the wall.
Yeah. But, so that stuff will come up later, and for now, we're just left with Ted. And none of us, I don't think, are really too keen on watching it ever again. But I don't know. Would we want to watch that more than the episode that's coming next? And we will be talking about that next week, because we will be watching Bad Eggs. So, until then, well, I think last time, Logan, you complained about doing the Grr Arg last, so you start us off. We'll see you guys next week.
Oh, the pressure.
Okay.
Grr Arg.
Grr Arg.
Grr Arg.
Grr Arg.
Grr, arg! We'd like to thank everyone who downloaded the podcast, and an extra special thanks to everyone who shared, liked, and subscribed on social media. If you'd like your questions or comments read on the show, you can contact us on our website, returntothehellmouth.com, on YouTube at Return to the Hellmouth, on Tumblr and Facebook at Return to the Hellmouth, and on Twitter at HellmouthReturn, or on email at returntothehellmouth@gmail.com. We'll be sure to read your comments on the show. Be sure to rate our show at iTunes and Stitcher, and check out our show merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. See you on Tuesday for Bad Eggs.
Grr, arg.